I'm Jack, host of the new comedic news and pop culture podcast, The Daily Zeitgeist from How Stuff Works. A little bit about me, I've listened to almost every episode of Stuff You Should Know and Stuff You Missed in History class. I'm the co-founder and was the editor-in-chief of Cracked for the last 11 years. And our show is basically the day's news and pop culture filtered through a brain that contains all the information that entails.
And I'm Miles Gray, Jack's co-host, a former political operative and pop culture addict, like something I actually take medication for.
He does. And sometimes he's a bunch of different people, like Michael McDonald.
Tell him he's a stranger.
Japanese radio DJ.
皆さんおはようございます。マイルスです。
And Making a Murderer's Brendan Dassey. Just a fair warning, guys, you're going to learn a lot, but some of the content can get a little edgy, so not for young ears, but trust us, it's all in good fun. So go to Apple Podcasts and listen and subscribe to The Daily Zeitgeist. It's really good, is our catchphrase. We're still working on it.
All right, so we're turning to South America now. And then we'll end with North America, which is probably what you and I are most familiar with and most of our audience is most familiar with. So what you find in South America, is it pretty common in terms of, or are we finding yet another example of the post-colonial influence on ghosts?
There's definitely a post-colonial influence.
Okay.
But this tradition, I think, is more revealing about pre-colonial beliefs in this case, because it concerns a particular native people.
Okay.
So for this one, I turned to a really captivating paper titled 3 Days for Weeping, Dreams, Emotions, and Death in the Peruvian Amazon by Glenn Shepard, published 2002 in Medical Anthropology Quarterly. And this is one of those, this is one of those papers. We read a lot of different academic papers for this show, and this is one of those that managed to weave together a personal story with anthropological commentary in a way that just really worked.
Yeah, that's pretty rare in the stuff that we read, but I'm thinking of like ethnographies tend to have more allowance for like a subjective narrative to be inserted among their observations.
It's certainly far less common in, say, archaeological paper. But this one just was really captivated me as it really stood apart from even other excellent papers I've read.
Cool. So
Shepard worked among the Matsaginka of Peru in the late 1980s. Now, the Matsaginka, they're an indigenous people of the Amazon basin jungle regions of southeastern Peru. And his paper kicks off with an account of a local woman who suffered uterine bleeding, which was said to have begun one day, quote, when she heard an unknown voice calling to her while she was working alone in the family garden. Pain and nightmares followed, and he ended up convincing her to, hey, let me bring you in for medical treatment. So he took her on this long journey. They encountered numerous complications, so travel, delays, her being unaccustomed to modern medical exams. Even encountered a problem where they ran into a traveling Matsaginka shaman, and this proved stressful for her as well because he was from another group and was therefore considered something of a warlock.
Okay.
Like there was this ingrained suspicion of shamans from other groups of the same people.
So I'm imagining she sensed a lot of just kind of bad energy in general with this journey.
Yeah, and she's quite ill and ends up dying.
Oh.
Now, but it ends up he uses this as a way to further analyze what's going on with the Matsaginka people and what their beliefs reveal about their customs and their view of death and bereavement. Now, the Matsaginka believe in spirits, and there are two varieties of note, and they both have similar wording. So on one hand, you have the Kamagarini. These are the bringers of death. Now, these are evil spirits, essentially demons, that seduce and or sexually assault Matsaginka people, resulting in illness or death. Shepard writes that the Matsaginka are generally a sex-positive bunch, but they frown upon what they see as deviant sexuality or obsessive sexuality, and the Kamagarini may punish this. And they're defined by perversions of diet, sexuality, and social behavior.
Okay.
So in this story of the young woman who was suffering, the idea is that they thought that she had been attacked by a Kamagurini.
Oh, okay.
Now, the second variety is a Kamatsuri, which means dead person, and these are more traditional ghosts in some respects. These are the spirits of the dead, and I think it's very telling given how they view them. So, like the demon that we described already, the bringer of death, these ghosts smell bad and they're frightful. So, if you dream about one, it's a total nightmare. You're going to wake up with aches, and you can blame any existing aches on that ghost dream.
Man, maybe that's what's been going on with me lately.
Well,
I thought it was just like a barometric pressure change, but it might be ghost dreams.
well, you might need to take some of the psychoactive and medicinal plants that they use to dispel these dreams,
Interesting.
especially if you have these dreams about a deceased loved one. Now, seeing a ghost while awake, for them, it's a serious health scare. So you have this scenario where there are these demonic entities out there, and they're after you, and if they get you, it's going to make you physically ill, and then you may die.
Okay.
And then when an individual dies, they will typically come back as a ghost, and that ghost is also a frightful thing that can make you sick, that can bring on physical illness and death, and essentially kind of leech your soul out of you.
So there's this whole taxonomy going on here of these various types of ghosts and how they're leading to other ghost creation.
Yeah, essentially. Now, Shepard says that the Kamatsuri here serves as a way to dehumanize the dead. Quote, the dead person is no longer a beloved spouse or relative, a human companion with a name and a social identity. Immediately upon death, they become Kamatsuri, dead person, ghost, belonging to the ranks of demons and dreadful spirits that are the ultimate cause of illness and death. Ghosts for the Matsa Ginka are not anonymous spirits from bygone generations. And a ghost only visits the people it knew in life. So they are alone, they are needy, they are awful, and they are to be shunned and avoided so that they might travel on to the next life.
So this is very different from other cultures where they revere their dead.
Right. So it's an interesting twist because generally the motif with ghosts and bereavement here in Western society is the living are losing it. We're crying, we're weeping, we're expressing our emotions, and then here comes this stoic ghost that wanders in and creeps us out.
Sure.
But it's the reverse in this tradition. The ghost is this needy, emotional thing,
Yeah.
and the humans are the ones that are going to react stoically. Like there is this intense cultural pressure to not let your emotions out in the face of death.
Okay. So this is very tied into that analysis of Don't Look Now, the idea of like maintaining your rationality, maintaining your self-control, not allowing yourself to fall into the emotional.
Yeah, like the emotion alone is going to make you sick. Shepard says, quote, just as happiness is synonymous with health, so is sadness synonymous with illness. Sadness represents a condition in which the soul turns away in contemplation, disassociating itself from the rest of the physical and social body. Now, another telling thing about the Matsa Ginka here is that the dead were not traditionally buried. Not at least not until missionaries came along and were really insistent on the fact that the dead should be buried.
Okay.
And the idea here is that, well, the ground, that's full of flames and foul vapors and demons and illnesses. The only thing that should be buried there are stillborn children, deformed children, and second-born twins, because they are essentially doppelgangers in their beliefs.
Wow, okay.
So instead, they practiced an exposure burial, in which the dead were left among the buttress roots of large trees. And if you were old and dying, well, you might just take it on yourself to walk out into the wilds all alone and find some tree roots to die among.
So this is kind of like sky burial, which we've talked about on the show before.
Yeah, the elements would essentially consume you.
Yeah.
And this is also interesting because Shepard says that the exposure burial served to chart their soul's journey into the afterlife based on the body's state of decay. So you could look at the dead body of one of your people, and you could say, okay, well, this body is really decaying. It's a safe body to be around because the ghost is far away. But if the body is fresh or the body hasn't decayed all that much, well, this is dangerous because that means they are near. They're still more seemingly alive.
Wow.
And it's really interesting to look at that in terms of a culture's bereavement tactic. Like, it's such
Yeah.
a stoic, shields up way of dealing with death. Like, no, the dead person is a dangerous ghost now,
Right.
and I can't feel anything because that will endanger me.
Yeah, so once you die in that culture, you're sort of shunned until you've been dead for a while, and it's okay to think about you or experience emotion related to you because your spirit is so far away.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'll link to that full paper on the landing page for this episode at stufftoblowyourmind.com, because the whole paper is super interesting, and it also gets into Matsuginka notions of the soul as well.
Okay, well, for our last ghost story, we're going to end where we reside, here in North America. As you would imagine, the North American ghost story tradition is heavily tied into the European tradition.